Maxwell Hall came down probably in the mid-'80s, and it was not only the place where they learned, but they also lived. And it was an old-fashioned, old-style dormitory, single rooms, telephone in the hallway. The students were all, at that time, I believe they were all women. And it was a dormitory. And then they had classes downstairs or somewhere in the facility there were classes. It was a beautiful old building overlooking the Hudson. It was really quite dramatic with a huge circular driveway. I came to Columbia after that building was raised. So I wasn't participating at Columbia. I was here in this in this old building now. When I first came, we had just moved in. There were desks and things all in the hallway, and it was roomy at that time. This building was roomy. We had the first 2 floors of the Georgian building. Do I need to say any more about the Maxwell Hall? I don't really know much more about it, except that it was a beautiful building. It was a beautiful building, and it harkened back to the days when nursing students were educated in the hospital, and it was their life. It was really their life. They worked in the hospital and lived nearby the hospital, ate in the hospital dining room. They didn't have kitchens. They lived like probies, really. So then we moved here, and at that time we were already a university, so we were separated from we were still training and learning and doing clinical in the hospital area. Not classes, the students were getting their clinical experience in hospital settings, but they weren't, we were divorced in many ways from the hospital. We weren't part of the hospital anymore, we were part of Columbia University, and we were conferring a degree. We were a degree program, degree granting program. And that was not simultaneous with the end of the bringing down of Maxwell Hall, but it was around the same time. I may not be accurate on that, so you may not want to include that. So then we came here, and we had the first 2 floors, and it seemed ample and roomy at the time. Students still didn't migrate here because there really wasn't much space for them to be to hang out or be here, so they came here when they had a purpose. They came to the school to meet with faculty, mostly to meet with faculty. We had a little TLC. We had a little teaching learning center, which at the time simulation was not big, so it was just looked like a hospital. So it simulated what it would be like when they got into the hospital, but no electronic devices and no models. It was just all people. We outgrew it on many levels. One level is just volume. We outgrew it in volume. The school has gotten much, much bigger than it was then. We have many more programs. We have many more degrees than we had then. At the time, we had a bachelor's and some master's programs. Now we have 4 degrees. So we've outgrown it in terms of volume of students, volume of faculty. But probably more significantly is we've outgrown it philosophically. Nursing education has moved into a whole nother level with the recommendation that all advanced practice nurses be educated at the doctoral level, and the mandate for more PhDs in nursing so that we have more nursing-oriented research and faculty. We needed more space for that. The students are here for a much longer period of time. The learning and the education is much more robust than it ever was. We rely more heavily on providing the students the knowledge and the skills they need to be a beginner practitioner. Years past, students would come who were almost there just from service, and they would come and get a credential. They were already pretty advanced in the way they practiced, so we had to supplement that with education and then verify that they can practice well. Now they're coming with a clean slate. They're college graduates who are eager to be the next generation of nurses, but they don't know anything. They don't know anything except they are passionate about their goals, and we have to teach them everything. It's our obligation as the university to teach them, so as a school of nursing. So I think that has put a lot of pressure on making sure the education does meet those needs. And for that we need people, we need simulation, we need space, we need opportunity to collaborate, to meet, to network. So there are many more pieces that go into the education of students. I think also the student life aspect was not addressed. In the past, you were here to learn to be a nurse, and there was no expectation that there'd be anything beyond that. But our students now are college graduates. They have a college experience, and they want to bring that college experience here, which means social events, networking, friendships, relationships, personal and professional. And so we have to provide venues for all of that. And right now we don't have. The students indicated early on during our meetings with various groups for their input about what they wanted. They wanted space to hang out. They wanted space to study. They wanted space to study alone. They wanted space to study in groups. They wanted space to do projects with other students, to meet with faculty. And they wanted an environment that encouraged encouraged them in many different ways. And so one of the things that kept coming out was light. They wanted light. They wanted to be a place that's lit. Well, all those things, the interaction stuff was definitely part of it. But then environmentally, they wanted to feel they wanted a feeling of space and light, and not artificial light. I mean, this kept coming through. I know you probably can. One can probably simulate real light with artificial light, but they wanted to be able to see the sky, and they wanted space. We don't have that in this building. We don't have any outside space in this building. We have our windows overlook less than desirable views. And so this new building is just tremendous in terms of the amount of light that it will let in, natural light that it will let in. The whole facade is see-through. And when they walk in, it's the double, the 2-story high, completely, you feel like you're out. I mean, from the pictures, it looks like you can feel like you're outside, but you have climate control. So I think that's just it's sort of a mood and an environment that will stimulate good things. It's just a positive. Well, they come from apartments that probably don't have views and don't have a lot of natural light. They do study a lot, so they're inside the school, the classrooms, which have no windows. They're in hospital settings that often have no windows. And we also don't have any outside space on the campus. We used to have a beautiful garden behind the hospital, but that garden has been closed. So there's literally the street, where the cars are. So I really think that is it the atrium? Is that what it's called? That one? I think the atrium, with opportunities for students to sit around and be there, will help them feel like they're part of being in this world.
Yeah.
The view will not be great, but there'll be light. From the new building,
yeah,
it'll be a school. For the building to be green, from the student perspective, it wasn't high on their. It wasn't something that I remember hearing as a strong recurrent theme. But I think seeing green, being green in that there'll be plants. The rooftop garden will be landscaped. I think there'll be plants that are expected to be even in the atrium. So there'll be a sense of inside-outside that they don't have. We'll have some food. There'll be a kiosk. There'll be a little cafe, so I think people might come to the cafe. But I think in general it'll be a stronger influence on the inter-nursing collaboration between and among students and faculty, which is important because in a large medical center that has some overpowering institutions, helping us to make our statement. I think the building will help us to make our statement. It'll strengthen our relationships with each other, and I think it will help us to be a statement on the CUMC campus.
Right.
Columbia School of Nursing has really always been on the forefront of clinical education. I think we have been there since we started having programs that were affiliated with the university. We've had the first midwifery program that was a master's program. We're really have a large influence on clinical education, and I think this building is a statement that we are on the forefront. Not that we're doing it now, but we're just making a statement of where we've been and where we expect to remain. We're pioneers when it comes to clinical education, and research in certain areas of nursing research. We're also groundbreaking. So I think having a building that's a statement, that's obvious, it will be an important message for the CUMC campus, the schools, and the community. They expect it. They expect it. Our students are very sophisticated, very bright. We are one of the only two Ivy League, no, there's 3 Ivy League nursing schools. And the expectation is that we will have state of the science.
Can we start that again?
We're one of 3 Ivy League nursing schools, Penn, Yale, and Columbia. So students, when they come here, expect us to have state of the science and state of the art facilities, which right now we don't have. We don't have the space for the state of the science. We do the best we can in the space that we have. So simulation is an expectation. For us, simulation is an adjunct to real clinical education, and I think the opportunity will be in this new space to have everything that we could possibly need in terms of simulation, so they're prepared. They do this before they go to clinical, or they do it in preparation for a challenging clinical experience. We're doing it now, but in a very cramped. So I think I think they expect the simulation, and we're going to deliver it. And I think it's going to be. I can't really speak much about that. Yeah. I think space has a way of setting a stage and creating an environment of vibrancy and energy, and I think that new space will do that. We don't have that here. I think we have it in our interactions. I think we do a great job overcoming our obstacles here, so we won't have to spend our emotional energy on overcoming it. Well, it'll be a comfortable space. I think faculty and students do connect, and I think the opportunity for the ease of opportunity to connect will be much more exaggerated in our new building. So there'll be more opportunity. It'll seem easier to sit down and have a chat with somebody that you may not be in class with because of the way things are going to be set up. It's true that students do connect with their classmates for life. They do that in college, and they do that here as well. They connect as friends and as colleagues for the rest of their lives. And I think this environment will encourage that. I think it also encourages faculty to become colleagues with students once they graduate. It's happened to me over and over again. I teach somebody, and then they graduate and they become my colleague. And now we'll have an opportunity to invite them to visit a little bit more easily than I can now. And I think all the faculty may have that same feeling. So I think it will be. I think it'll have a lasting effect on the friendships that will develop here.
Well, my first collision with the nursing school came back in 1950, when I came to the medical school here as a student, and Maxwell Hall was the place that was the center for the training of nurses at that time. Nurses played a very important role in running the hospital and taking care of patients, of course, and were totally focused on the improvement of patients' health. Doctors had more time, and they were very expert at what they knew, but they didn't know very much. And so medical care at that time was pretty rudimentary as we look back now almost 65 years. And so there have been dramatic changes in training of doctors, training of nurses. And doctors have less and less time to take care of more and more patients. And to fill that gap has been a transformation of the training of our nurses. Nurses still play a pivotal role in seeing to it that patients get better. And patients don't spontaneously get better, nor do they react positively just to have a doctor tell them what's wrong and have some kind of surgery. They need to go through a transition where they go from being sick to being well. And that transition is often filled by nurses. And so the training of nurses has had to follow the technology of healthcare and medicine, which has, of course, been revolutionary. We've seen diseases such as AIDS, for instance, which appeared in the environment in 1981, where people extrapolated that everyone who had AIDS was going to die, but they would die after a few years. And extrapolating the rate of growth of the population with AIDS suggested that all the hospitals would be filled with AIDS patients, and we wouldn't have enough doctors, we wouldn't have enough nurses to do this. And so there were two things that had to happen. One, we had to project for taking care of, how to take care of all these patients, and secondly, we had to develop new technology, discover new drugs. And because the government was willing to invest in training people in new ways and inventing new drugs, the whole thing miraculously was solved in that new drugs were discovered that transformed a disease that was 100% lethal to a disease where people who are infected, in fact, are treated with a triple combination drug and feel much better. They go back to work. They're not in hospitals. And so the solution was both taking care of those people who were sick and invention and introduction of new drugs. And that has covered almost every field. We go from people who had kidney disease, who everyone was going to die with chronic kidney disease. Now everyone gets dialyzed. They get kidney transplants. People with heart disease, coronary heart disease, when you had a heart attack, you'd come in, when I was a young doctor, you'd come into the hospital and stay for about a month, where you'd be in the bed for a week or two and then slowly start to ambulate. All that required doctors, required special nurses, special feeding, special diets, and now patients, first of all, they have fewer heart attacks. Why? Because we control blood pressure, we control high blood cholesterol, we control diets, and we control diabetes, and so everything's better. Nurses have had to have entirely different kind of education. Doctors have carried the same, and everything's better.
Right.
Yes, well, we've talked about the changing of the scene and the environment of medicine and how you take care of patients, and nurses, of course, have changed roles in order to fill the enormous complexity of healthcare. Doctors have limited time, and while they can spend some time in making diagnoses and prescribe a drug or do surgery, there is a role for nurses which is very close to what was done initially by primary care doctors. And so nurses are increasing their performance in healthcare technology. And so they're doing it both through doing research, which is learning new ways to limit the potential of infectious diseases, potential of problems with obesity, diabetes, etc. So the nurses that are being trained today are really fulfilling roles that doctors used to have to do in the past. And this is good because we don't have enough doctors. And doctors becoming more and more specialized. So as they become more and more specialized, they have less and less time for patients. Someone's got to take care of the patients and take care of with very high technology. And those are the kinds of nurses we can produce at Columbia because they're smart and they learn all this stuff during their training period. And the new building will really fulfill many of the requirements for the training of these new kinds of. Well, you know, every place likes to think it's unique. And I think the first PhD program for nurse practitioners started at Columbia. So our nurses are trained much further along in technology. They're taught much more research performance, and so they get into making new information available for the practice of medicine and practicing medicine by nurses. And so this is, I would say that we are training the nurses for the future. But in addition to that, we have to be very careful that we don't leave a gap in patient care. And so those nurses have to do the very top of technology and research and all that, but we've got to make sure that we're not running away from the patients. And that's critical for ultimate health of the people who are sick. Well, I think the new building has the technology and the space to house whatever is required for the future. I think the simulation space will be very special and allow the nurses to carry out procedures that they would otherwise have to do with live patients, and it's much better to practice as aviation simulators where people learn to fly in a machine essentially with lots of feedback from instrumentation. But that's what we're going to have for the nurses as they get into new technology and can take care of patients, having practice initially on other than patients. Really, the two buildings that are going up now are both education buildings, and that's critical because we have lots of patient care space. We have, of course, we have laboratories everywhere in the medical center, at the medical school, the nursing school, but these buildings are going to be specifically for education of our new breed of doctors for the new century, and so the other building that you referred to is a graduate and medical education building, which is now up to 14, 15 floors, and it's a spectacular new building which will be finished, I believe, and occupied by the year 2016. The nursing school building will follow shortly thereafter, and will be a spectacular building right across the street, right across Broadway, and will fulfill the similar requirements really for training our student nurses. Well, I think the Columbia University is a great university in a great city. Probably, I would say, the greatest city in the world, with a university that sort of fits that kind of image. The medical school and the nursing school, as well as the dental and the School of Public Health, have a very high image globally, and the city of New York is fighting to remain a dominant city globally, worldwide, and education is a major component of the vitality of a city because it brings youth in, it brings research in, it brings people who are excited to learn and get into the community and make a big impact on the future. And it assures that these kinds of buildings will assure constant flow of those kinds of people who will succeed and will make a major contribution both to the city and the world.
To make a contribution?
Well, I personally like contributing to the future and the building of the future, and there's no way to do that better than to invest in young people, training of young people. I have done that for many, many decades, and it pays off enormously because these people are trained. They go on to train other people. The people that I trained when I began my career are now retiring, but they have trained other people. So what we do in these buildings is start a catalytic effect. The people we train go out and train other people. And so it's, we're training in, I would say, one of the two most important futuristic professions that one could possibly work in. The top one, of course, is healthcare. And so the city, the university must be paramount in training people for healthcare. The second one, which is a recent interest of mine, is climate change. and global warming. And because that's such an enormous problem, I think the university is going to beef up to respond to the needs for that as well. And we're going to see another flowering of technology and new research to solve the climate change problems.
Yeah, so I graduated from Providence College in 2008. I got a Bachelor of Arts in American Studies. I was thinking about going to law school and took the LSATs, and then I was offered a job at Goldman Sachs. So I decided to move to New York and try out finance. So about a week after I graduated college, I had a stroke. I was born with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is a disease where the ventricle is too thick. And so that caused a stroke a week after I graduated college. So I had to move to New York, learn how to get my memory back, learn how to speak again, a whole bunch of things. And then once it all came back, the part of the brain that handles math was sort of intact, but the part of the brain that handles language was the part that was hurt. So finance was sort of an ideal job for me. At the time, my brain was healing. And then once I got it all back, I kind of thought I wanted to give more purpose and meaning to what I had gone through. So I decided to go to school and be a nurse. I had spent about a month in the hospital after I graduated during the time that I had the stroke, and so the nurses were really the ones that were involved most in my care from an emotional and physical standpoint, really making sure that I recovered, not only physically but emotionally. Yeah, to be a nurse as opposed to another healthcare profession, I really felt like they had the most impact on the whole person. So nursing was the profession that lended itself to be able to deal with both the physical and emotional aspects of the person. Well, they would listen to videos of me singing, and talk to me about my girlfriend and my family, and make sure that I regained my confidence and made me feel like I could be the best person that I could be, really. In 2012, I was standing in front of the mirror at a doctor's office, and it was a comprehensive physical that my employer had for me, and I was in scrubs, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, I think I'll do this. So I called my parents and said, I think I want to be a nurse. My dad was like, well, why? And I said that I just kind of felt like that was what I was supposed to be, and that I could make the best difference doing. So I just enrolled in prerequisite classes at Mass General. They have an online prerequisite program for people that want to be nurses. And I did that at night while I was working on Wall Street. And then I applied to Columbia and a few other schools. Columbia was one of the first schools that offered the application. Columbia was one of the first schools that the applications were due to. So I applied to them first, kind of thinking that I wouldn't get in. And I was already starting all the applications for the other ones. And then Columbia accepted me, so I thought that was ideal because I was already in New York, and for me that was important. So the nursing program's been great. The program, the ability to have it, the bachelor's, actually I got to change that because they don't offer that anymore. They changed their program. But the ability to become a nurse in a short period of time was really ideal for me because I already had a bachelor's in something else and now wanted to pursue nursing. So being able to get it succinctly was of value to me. And also, now that I'm here, the caliber of the people are excellent, both the professors and the students themselves. Everyone comes from a different background, everyone has unique perspectives to offer, and it's great. So I'm an adult gerontology nurse practitioner program, and I've started taking classes now to do the seamless DNP, where you just transition into the doctorate. So now I'm in the last semester of the master's program, so I'm taking doctorate classes on Friday, and the master's Monday through Thursday.
Wow, that's a lot.
So I subspecialized in palliative care, pain and palliative care. So I did a intensive clinical experience at Calvary Hospital, which is a hospital for dying patients in the Bronx, and that experience really added significant value to my experience at Columbia, just because it not only tied together a lot of the critical thinking skills that the school taught me, but also really helped me emotionally connect with patients, learn how to deliver bad news to family members, and really be able to interact with them on a more deeper level than just here's your medication.
To be able
Yeah, so Columbia offers classes in health and social policy, as well as advanced practice management and other chronic illness management, and courses that sort of speak to those more, yeah. So Columbia prepares us through the coursework, but also through this, what they call integration, where the last 3 months of our bachelor's program, we go and fully integrate into a hospital. So we follow a patient around for we follow a provider around, a nurse. We kind of buddied up with them, and we follow them around for the 3 months and just work on their schedule. And I was paired up with a man at the neuro ICU at Cornell Presbyterian. And so that experience is unique to Columbia in that it really prepares you for the real world applications of what you're learning in the classroom. And I feel like a lot of places you wouldn't really get that hands-on experience before you went into practice. And they do it right at the end of that ETP phase. So it's really nice way to sum up everything and put the skills with the yeah. So the skills lab definitely prepares your technical things, but the mannequin looks totally different than the human, obviously. So even though you have all the steps prepared, there's a lot more unknown and things that can happen when you're dealing with a real. Yeah, I saw pictures of it. It looks great.
Yeah. Are you excited about the?
So when I worked on Wall Street, I obtained my MBA and my master's in finance from Northeastern. And so initially I'd like to do clinical care and then eventually transfer into maybe nursing administration or nursing management with those, just because of my background in business. I recently also completed my MBA and my master's in finance from Northeastern, and I sort of want to use those degrees as well as. I recently obtained my MBA from Northeastern University as well as a Master of Science in Finance, and so I want to use those degrees in addition to my nursing degrees here to move into healthcare administration, ideally. But I would like to spend a few years obviously learning the ropes and getting my hands dirty doing real clinical care as I pursue the doctorate. So after I finished my doctorate here, like I said before, I subspecialized in palliative care, and I really want to get into pain management and palliative care, dealing with people with chronic illness and helping them manage that illness across its trajectory. But then I also have my MBA that I've obtained before in prior work experience, and I would like to eventually become a nurse administrator or healthcare management role.
Did you?
Yeah, so well, there was 10 men that started my program, so then 160 girls, so that was a little intimidating at first, just to be with that many girls. But I found a nice girlfriend, and so we've been dating for 2 years now in the school. So that's been great, and I've also made a lot of good friends in the program. I think that what makes Columbia special is that there are a lot of people that really care about I think there are a lot of people, students and faculty, that care about patients, and I felt that before I came to Columbia, maybe I was in the minority of someone that would care that much about the work that they did and the patients that I was taking care of. But everyone here really seems to care that much. Some care more about academics, some care more about research, some care more about clinical practice. But I think having all of those different people with the ultimate goal of patient care at the end is the best thing about Columbia. And it's nice to know that there are other people out there that care that much about the health of people. I'm a Columbia nurse.
You can say
Or is it I am a Columbia nurse?
however you like.
Okay. And that's why I'm proud to be a Columbia nurse. I am a Columbia nurse. I am a Columbia nurse. I am a Columbia nurse. I'm proud to be a Columbia nurse.
Well, like I said, I am a second career nurse, and I enjoyed a 20-year career as a chef and restaurateur in the San Francisco Bay Area. I truly embraced the farm-to-table movement. I truly jumped into all the creativity and all the energy that I found in San Francisco. And I think that there was something missing, in a sense, that made me actually come back to the sciences and especially nursing, because I did study biochemistry as an undergrad, and I I want to say I never fully capitalized on that undergraduate degree. When you feel like you have to go and cook in San Francisco, you have to go and cook in San Francisco. But there was something still nagging, and I felt that in the end, and also because I was turning 40, that I could really make more of a difference, and I want to say be more effective in changing lives as a nurse and helping patients to make what changes they want to make in their lives as a nurse compared to as a fine dining chef. In that environment, it's very scripted. You know exactly what you have to do to make people happy, but in some ways it's very limited, and you don't see what happens to them afterwards. As a nurse, you get to follow someone through their life cycle. You get to follow someone through their perioperative experience. You get to follow someone through their hospitalization, and see the transformation that happens to them. From initially being fearful of a diagnosis and eventually overcoming that fear and taking charge of their recovery. And so I felt that, yes, one, I could bring about more change in the world doing this. I actually applied to a handful of schools, and I wanted to be in an urban environment. I felt that the energy and the experiences that one can obtain in an urban environment were essential to becoming a good nurse. And so I did choose only those schools in those areas. And I was lucky enough to be accepted into Columbia. Everyone will tell you that they want to live in New York at least once. And that may have prompted the final decision for a lot of other folks. But for me, it wasn't just being able to live in New York or coming here to live in New York, but to come to a place where there is no majority of thinking or of people. And of all the places I've traveled in the world, I want to say it's the most diverse. More than many other international cities. And because of that, you will be exposed to everyone and everything and every condition. And that's why I wanted to come to New York. Now, why did I want to come to Columbia specifically? Because of the reputation I know of the hands-on and the clinical experiences. Nowhere else would we have clinical sites as wonderful as we do here at Columbia. I want to say that a lot of my classmates, many of my classmates, are international students. They've traveled extensively. Many of my class were, I want to say, had come from missions abroad. And what they and I found coming here was that you didn't have to travel too far to obtain the experiences that you wanted or to experience the patient populations that you wanted to experience. In my undergraduate studies, I came from San Luis Obispo, California. And the university there is called Cal Poly. And the motto at Cal Poly was learn by doing. It was very hands-on. It started off as an agricultural tech school. It was very hands-on. The one thing that I loved about my first days here at Columbia was that they forced us to be hands-on from day one. The very first week we were here, we spent a day in the hospital. Then after the summer months, we spent 2 days in the hospital each week. And then from there, it just, it morphed into spending all of your days in the hospital. But I really appreciated the learn by doing. And I appreciated how the preceptors understood where you were initially and where you had to get to be an effective nurse, and they were going to be there with you the whole time. And the only way that you were going to learn was to roll. I want to say that I found a home in many of the faculty, in the sense that I was able to find people who thought the same way I did, were open to new experiences the way I was, and still am. And literally, they did open their homes to me. And one thing that I really appreciated, and it reminded me of the small town that I came from, was that they would open their access to us students. Here's my cell phone number. This is where I live. Call me anytime, not just office hours. I'm available here. I'm available when you need me after your clinical site. Let's talk about what happened today on the floor in the hospital. And so I really appreciated that. I appreciated how they treated us as peers in the very beginning and not just students. I was really excited to have the opportunity to give input on the design of the building. The architectural team was very open to listening to what we needed, but also what we wanted and what we hoped for. So actually that was the way they framed the meetings and framed what they wanted from us. As students, what are the minimum requirements? A library, lockers, changing rooms, maybe a coffee shop. Then there was, then the next level would be what would you want to the sky if the sky, was the limit, right? And thirdly, what would you hope for so that this would be a place that you'd be really proud of showing off, proud of being in, proud of working in. And I think that we had maybe 10 students initially, 10 students giving their input. And it was a really helpful exchange. It was a very good exchange. They were very receptive to our ideas. The heart of the building is the lab. The heart of the building are the, simulation rooms, really.
Say that again? Just so that
Sure. The heart of the building are the simulation rooms. And I was really encouraged by what they had to say and how much they wanted to invest in building that out, in really making it world class and really making it a destination. There are, and I'll be honest with you, there are other campuses that you visit as a student when you decide which place to go. And the simulation lab is probably one of the factors that make you decide or that make the decision for you as to where to go. I was really encouraged when the architects spent a lot of time talking about the simulation labs in the building. They wanted to make it world class. And I was very happy to hear that they wanted to recreate the environment that we would find outside in the working world. They wanted to create a simulation lab that was very similar to what you would find in hospitals. The OR, the ICU bay, a clinic room, pediatric facilities. And I think that the more practice you have in a real world setting, you're going to be much more comfortable when you head out there and really have to perform on patients. One of the joys of being an alumnus, actually, is reflecting back on how far you've come in the years that you've been out of school. So every year, you mark time not only in the number of skills that you've developed and acquired, but also in the number of students that you're able to mentor. And I love the idea of having a home to come back to see how those students have progressed as well in their career. I'm very much involved in mentoring students from Columbia, and actually I keep in touch with the class behind me, and I want to say there are a couple folks also 2 years behind. And to have a place where we can gather, to have a place where we can exchange our experiences and see how far we've come along is a wonderful thing. And I would very much love to have a future facility, a future building that really represents who we are. I think that the choice to come to Columbia is one that you shouldn't take lightly. I think that it will transform the way you think. You will be exposed to everyone and everything and every patient population, and I'm so grateful for that. What you will remember, not only, let's see, what you'll carry with you is a sense that you have the skills you need. You have enough resources around you to help carry you through any new experience. You will always have a network of Columbia nurses to count on and to call up when you need them. And that's what I really appreciate about my education here. You do form lifelong friendships, but more than that, you find a community and colleagues that you really respect. They prove themselves as students. They really helped you along when you were all students. And now you know that as they're progressing in their specific concentration, they're acquiring more knowledge and expertise in that. And how wonderful is it 5 years out, 10 years out, to be able to call up an expert that you went to school with. I think that as a second career student, the challenges that I faced or that surrounded issues of what you've done in your life, the responsibilities that you have in your life. And I think that you appreciate people as having complex lives, and if you can contribute to helping them achieve this goal in the midst of trying to juggle a complex life, I think that's really valuable, and I think that that encourages graduates to pay it forward. And I think that's the reason why you should consider giving back to the school, back to Columbia, and also back to fellow nurses that are on the same journey that you are.
That's good. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I am a Columbia nurse. I am a Columbia nurse.
How about I am a Columbia nurse?
I am a Columbia nurse.
Good. That's good.
I am a pediatric nurse practitioner. I work in a pediatric primary care practice out in Brooklyn. We do everything ranging from newborn well visits to pre-college physicals, sick visits. I also do some nutrition counseling for obese adolescents and some mental health teaching and screening for kids. I am a pediatric nurse practitioner. I work in a pediatric primary care practice. I do everything from newborn well visits to adolescent school physicals. We do nutrition screening for adolescents and sick visits, and we also do behavioral health screening for children as well. Columbia School of Nursing for 3 degrees. I got my ETP in 2003. I got my master's as a pediatric nurse practitioner in 2005, and I graduated in May of 2013 with my DNP.
Wow, sure.
I was surrounded by healthcare. My father's a physician, and I always knew I wanted to work with kids in a healthcare setting. And after speaking to my father, he told me that he didn't think that medical school was the way to go. He thought that the care that I wanted to give patients and the involvement I wanted in a patient's life wouldn't be able to do with healthcare reform for doctors the way it was. So he really pushed me to examine alternate routes of providing healthcare for patients. And he worked with the nurse practitioner in the local hospital where he worked. And he had me shadow her for a day or two, and I just fell in love. So that was the impetus to become a nurse practitioner. I think that Columbia, the biggest thing that Columbia pushed was critical thinking and thinking outside of the box. And I always said I never wanted to do research, and that's why I got a clinical degree. But having taken research classes and exposing me to that really made me appreciate not only the way research is done, but also how to interpret the research. And that, I think, plays a big part in the healthcare that I provide to patients. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of teaching. I think that as a nurse practitioner, one of my biggest roles is teaching. And because I work in pediatrics, there's a lot of anticipatory guidance and explaining to parents not only what's happening now, but what's going to happen next. And so, using the research, and my first degree is in child development, so those two things combined has really been able to help me give patients the information that they need. I think that Columbia is and has always been in the forefront of nursing education. They were, the first with the DNP. They really not only promote your learning, but passing that education on to others, and they just make a great deal of teaching. Columbia is at the forefront of nursing education. They were one of the first to have the DNP degree, and I think that having an advanced clinical degree for nursing is really important. I work in a very small, close-knit community with really big families, so I've taken care of 8 siblings in the same family. I now take care of children of teenagers that I took care of when I first started working in the practice 9 years ago. And so being involved with my patients it makes it a community, and people can really take my caring for their kids as not just she's doing this because she's a healthcare provider, but because I really care about their children and what's going to happen to them in the future. Well, there's so much of what goes on, and especially in a child's life more so than I think in an adult's life, because the family is a unit and they are with their parents all the time. So I sometimes have to counsel the parents on what they need to do for themselves in order to better take care of their children, as well as what they need to do for their child to help them get better in the best way possible. The other students that I met, because my background has always been primary care, and through the pediatric nurse practitioner program and also the doctoral program, you get exposed to so many different types of nursing and the ways that people practice. And I think after a time, your friendships and seeing people practice really does rub off on you. So I have friends who do oncology, I have friends who do adult cardiac care, I have friends who do adult primary care. And so it really gives you an opportunity to not only make friendships, but also learn from your classmates. Yes, actually 2 of my best friends from the DNP program, we get together about once every month or every 2 months, and we just discuss what's going on in our lives. And I use it as a sounding board for frustrations that I have, but also for interesting cases, and we just bounce ideas back and forth. We joke about opening our own practice. My faculty, the faculty that I had, and I can only speak really for the pediatric nurse practitioner program in terms of the master's level, but the head of the pediatric program is still one of my very good friends. I always joke that if I were 1/10 as smart as Rita is, that I'll do well in life. And we've maintained a close-knit relationship. We actually authored 2 papers together last year. So she's been not only a teacher but a friend, and I think that is really helpful. Mm-hmm. Well, the head of the pediatric nurse practitioner program, Dr. John, and I have remained good friends for the past 9 years, and I just use her as a sounding board. She's been very helpful. I always joke that if I were 1/10 as smart as Dr. John is, I'll make it far in life. And we've remained in touch. We wrote, co-authored 2 papers together last year. All right. I'm really excited about the new building. It's going to bring a state-of-the-art education to students. There are going to be great labs and studying places. It's supposed to be top-notch. It's going to be state-of-the-art. There's going to be practice labs. Students are going to be able to practice on dummies, are they practicing on each other? On dummies. They're going to mannequins, I guess. They're going to be able to practice on mannequins. The machinery and the technology is going to be state of the art. It's going to be a really good stepping stone for when they get into the real world to see what's out there. The environment of the new building is going to be great because they're going to be nursing students together all the time, whereas when I was a student, it was medical students and doctoral students and dental students all in the same place. But this is really going to create a community of nurses and nursing students who will learn from each other and study together, and also have each other as a sounding board, you know, to air frustrations and nerves and fears that they might not be able to talk about with students who have not been through the same things that they've been through. My younger self would need to know that it's okay to be unsure of yourself and nervous at the beginning, that as much as Columbia prepares you to go out into the real world, there are things that are going to come up that you're just not prepared for, and it's okay to be nervous and scared, and you will get through it and you will learn from it, and it will help you in the future.
Thank you. Okay.
I am a Columbia nurse.
A couple times.
I am a Columbia nurse. I am a Columbia nurse.
Okay, that's fine.
I am a Columbia nurse. I am a Columbia nurse.